pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Please be seated. Jared, please take roll.
Ms. Bennett.
Here.
Mr. Bekowski.
Here.
Mr. DeMarco.
Here.
Mr. Dewar.
Here.
Ms. Filiaggi.
Here.
Mr. Fatulis.
Here.
Ms. Hallam.
Here.
Mr. Klein.
Here.
Mr. Macy.
Here.
Ms. Nacarati-Chapkus.
Here.
Mr. Palmieri.
Here.
Mr. Paul Messina.
Here.
Ms. Pritzio.
Here.
Mr. Walton.
Here.
President Katina.
Here.
15 members are present.
Thank you. At this point in time, we'll have the Chief Executive's quarterly address. Mr. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. Good to be with you again as we begin our summer months. Let me start off with the parks because we are ready and a lot of activities are happening in our parks. Obviously, when we hit these months, and our ball fields, our trails, our shelters, our pools ready to go. I'm happy to report that our pools did open on time this year. We were able to get 200 lifeguards to staff the 160 that we need to open all of our pools, which obviously is really important. I know that's a challenge for many municipalities right now and other places as well to try to get those. And I want to really congratulate Director Beckley and his team because they've really worked at this almost for a whole year, recruiting with swim clubs, with schools, swim teams, et cetera, to make sure that that happens. And knowing, you know, how important our parks are to so many people. Not just, we saw it during COVID, obviously, as an outlet for folks, but, you know, when the weather gets nice like this, the beautiful sculpture garden is now open at Heartwood Acres. So many people are availing themselves to that, and our summer concert series, which began last week. And again, thousands of people that show up every Sunday night in Heartwood Acres and Friday night at South Park. Talk a little bit about, I like to go into, you know, economic development and some of the challenges that we have. One of the challenges we have right now is filling all the jobs that are available out there. I saw on Indeed, the website this morning, over 50,000 jobs are open here in this Pittsburgh region. And we alone in Allegheny County, between our various departments and the courts, have over 1,600 jobs that are open right now. You may or may not know, and you can tell your constituents, we have a job fair that's going to be a virtual job fair that is going to occur this Thursday from 10 to 6, so people can avail themselves and get on there and see what kind of jobs are open for people at the various departments. And quite frankly, it's across the board. There's no one that really sticks out. It's really pretty across the board on where we need to go. The one good thing I can say is, you know, we're holding job fairs and holding job openings at our airport as that airport project moves forward, the $1.4 billion project. Over 500 people every day are out there working, helping to build the new modernization airport that we have going on. But while we're doing that, we're still continuing to operate in an aggressive manner. We added the extra 2 flights to British Airways, flying nonstop to Heathrow now 6 days a week. Breeze, which is kind of a new airport, a new airline that's launched in Pittsburgh, is going to be going to Orange County, California, the first time we've gone there in over 20 years. In addition, we'll be adding another LAX flight with Breeze in September. So the more we can get to the West Coast, we hear that from the community all the time, that's really a desirability to have that happen. Breeze is also launching nonstop service to Raleigh-Durham, Long Island, Jacksonville, Florida, and Portland, Maine. So we continue to see more going on. I mentioned the Pit to Work, linking interested workers on the job training develop among our union trade partners, requirements, you know, pre-certification with our apprenticeships that again are happening out at Pittsburgh International Airport, which also is providing some daycare services as well for some of those workers who are out there. We're also very proud that we hosted the very first Innovation Robotics and Aviation Summit, and it really matches the over 100 robotics companies that we have with the needs that, quite frankly, the airline industry needs to utilize. And the fact that they hosted here, we had Governor Shapiro who came in for it and kind of kicked it off. And it's something, again, talking about the burgeoning economy in the robotics and AI field. Excuse me, in the AI field is really something that we're excited to talk about and to do. Want to also talk a little bit about some of the things we have in the various departments. Want to talk about the blight removal program, again, back in economic development, that's opening up through this Friday. People can put their applications in through Friday the 23rd. Individual awards are able to be, are capped at $250,000, and there's approximately $1.5 million that's available for distribution. We'll be announcing that in July. And within the health department, we began doing the spray that we do with the mosquito treatment of the 50 wetlands across 20 different municipalities in this region, something, again, that the health department does every year. And in April, right after the last time I came to see you, the U.S. EPA selected Allegheny County's Targeted Airshed Grant Program, awarded them $10 million for funding to address environmental and health inequities throughout the Mon Valley, with the replacement of diesel buses with new zero-emission vehicles for PRT, for the Pittsburgh Regional Transit. This funding will be used to replace 4 40-foot PRT diesel buses, again, making that improvement. I'm also happy to report that 6 months into the year, we are exceeding the air improvement that we had last year. And last year, for the 3rd year in a row, Allegheny County made attainment with the EPA monitors at all 8 monitors throughout Allegheny County. And notwithstanding a little bit of an issue with the Canadian wildfires that occurred a couple of weeks ago, our monitors are way ahead of where we were last year. So we're excited to be able to say that. As again, I mentioned the human resources, the virtual job fair. It's really important that we start to fill some of these positions and some of the things that we continue to do. Also wanted to talk about some of the outreach that we have. We opened the completion of the renovation of the Outreach Center facility on 5th Avenue here in downtown. It's the only emergency shelter in the county which serves homeless youths 18 to 25 and has been doing that for decades with more than $1 million in funding from the county and private foundations. And we really appreciate the private sector stepping up, helping us to do that. Again, along the lines of the training and the jobs that we continue to talk about, and I hear that every day from our corporate community and various nonprofits, CCAC and the Cane have continued to collaborate on the Certified Nursing Aid Program, training to meet that need, not just for our Canes and the facilities that we have, but throughout the medical fields here in the community and in the region. Back to the parks a little bit, we will be getting the Hometown Hoops program, which we've been doing for a number of years. 33 basketball mini camps being held starting tomorrow through the beginning of August. Different communities through Allegheny County, again, gives some of our youth some activities that they could be working on, doing and staying active. We just hosted, as we do every year, the County Marbles Tournament, and I would like to congratulate Keela Knight, who was one of the division's winner, and runner-up Emily Lepick, and then the boys division winner was Connor Hyde with runner-up Kai Scott. Those of you who ever go down and watch these young people really get into what's going on, their families come, and it's been a great thing we've been able to host down in the courtyard, and then of course they go on to the Nationals in Wildwood, New Jersey, and we usually do pretty well here with our team doing the kids from Allegheny County. Talk a little bit about the Public Defender's Office. You know that the Public Defender announced his resignation to seek, obviously, running for District Attorney, but that office is not stopping, and they launched a pilot project called Project Rehabilitate, which assists patients in the drug and alcohol rehabilitation facilities who have substance use disorder in involvement with the Allegheny County legal system. And in the first 4 months, there have been over 215 hours spent with clients in 4 separate facilities, with 160 clients being served and 433 cases being pending. They've cleared 224 warrants, closed over 150 cases, and saved the clients thousands of dollars in fines. And I want to thank our public defenders for the work that they do continue in that operation. We're starting to see a little bit of a return to our ridership at the PRT. We know the challenge with the working at home that exists throughout our community, but the Catherine Kellerman and her team have reported that they're starting to see more of an uptick in where they are. So with that, I was going to open up to any questions any of you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Executive? Council member?
Thank you, President Katina. So as we all know, tonight is proposed to be the last night that the emergency overnight Smithfield shelter is supposed to be open. So I have two questions specifically regarding that. First is, so if your administration continues down this road it's set up for our unhoused neighbors and goes through with the closure tonight of the overnight emergency shelter in the Smithfield Church, what will happen to the over 70 people who will be outside the shelter tomorrow night with nowhere to go? Does DHS specifically have a plan for those folks?
Yeah, as of today, the population that we had been given is about 168 folks who utilized that shelter, and as of now, there's been 181 offers that have been made for people to be able to find other housing arrangements.
Yes, I've heard about the offers. I'm specifically asking about the people who tomorrow night will be outside the shelter looking for shelter. Is there a plan for the county to somehow coordinate with those folks who will be locked out?
I'm assuming DHS will be working with them to try to give them the availability of these other 181 that are out there.
Okay, and then second question about that. Since we know that forced displacement often leads to death, especially for people experiencing homelessness and people who use drugs, will your administration consider reopening the shelter after the first unhoused person dies in the street? I'm just kind of trying to understand if there's any parameters that you have identified that if this happens, then we will reopen the shelter.
Well, first of all, the shelter had never been open beyond March, except for one time during COVID. It was always, it's a cold weather shelter that was designed to be open during the winter months. It doesn't have the cooling system. It's not a shelter like a lot of us think of with beds and other parameters. It's got cots in the basement. So whatever DHS recommends, which is what I'll continue to work on and see where they go.
And is part of that opening in November like it used to open? Is that still a plan to happen?
I'll wait to hear what DHS has to say. I mean, we now have another shelter that we didn't have before called the 2nd Avenue Commons, which also accommodates, I think, over 100 people. So we'll just have to see where the system goes. And again, DHS will make a lot of evaluations, and I have a lot of confidence with Director Dalton and her team and how they'll operate.
Okay, but as of now, those plans aren't in place.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all, President Katina.
Thank you. Just one question, Mr. Executive. I talked to Manager Liptak a few weeks ago about Schumann, the former Schumann Center. Any updates on what's going on? She was gracious enough to give me some updates, but I was just wondering if there's anything newer.
They're going through the planning process right now. I think with architects and an RFP, and I know a number of you took a tour a number of weeks ago to be able to see, and you saw the kind of condition that it's in. So the county manager and her team are working as quickly as they can to try to get something open.
Okay, thank you.
I have a comment.
Councilman Walton?
Chief Executive Fitzgerald, on behalf of my constituents in Wilkinsburg, and specifically those individuals that reside at Wood Street Towers, I want to thank you most sincerely for the assistance that this administration has provided to demonstrate the responsiveness, the accountability of your operation. Those senior citizens in that high-rise have been struggling over a year to have the appropriate elevator and services in that facility. There was a crisis that erupted a week and a half ago. I made a call. The elevators are down. Many of those residents of that facility are disabled and physically impaired. I made a call to your administration you immediately assigned DHS, the Department of Aging, to come and begin to assess what was going on and to find a solution. There's been a serious bed bug problem there. Again, there's been complete support and effort to work to ensure that those individuals are dealt with in an appropriate and transparent manner. I want to say here, and this is what this is what I've been saying in our meetings in Wilkinsburg. This is how government is supposed to work, to provide the needed services to the residents of our community. There are areas where people may disagree and have their own opinion and their own perspectives about systems, but I want to say that I appreciate and respect the work that you and your administration has done to address that problem there in Wilkinsburg and many other problems that we're confronted with in the Wilkinsburg community in total. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman. And I'll tell you, the workers who work in DHS do some of the toughest work, and I'm really proud of the work that they've been doing. Previously under Director Mark Cherna and now under Director Aaron Dalton. A lot of that difficult work happened during the pandemic, which obviously made it even more challenging for some of the issues that they run into. But those issues are still very, very, very vexing, and they're continuing to work. So we'll work with any of our partners, whether it be in Wilkinsburg or any of the 130 municipalities that we have, to try to alleviate issues that folks are having.
Councilmember Macy?
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, County Executive, for being here. I heard your report about the Allegheny County Airport Authority and Pittsburgh International. However, we have another airport, and it just happens to be in my district. And I want everybody to know that that airport is standing tall. I've had several visits up there and several tours. And that the takeoffs and landings up there keep exceeding every year. That's what we call revenue. In fact, the takeoffs and landings and the operations at the Allegheny County Airport exceeds Harrisburg's. And Harrisburg just happens to be an international airport. Imagine that. The other thing I'd like to mention is that the Fire Vest program, which Community College is a partner in, has pointed out that they want to increase some of the educational opportunities for emergency medical technicians as well as CDL drivers, and we all know about that. But as far as jobs are concerned, there is work going on, and in my district, we're still trying to catch up from the closing of the steel mills. But Rich, I heard on KDKA today that you're going to Ireland, trying to get a direct flight out of Pittsburgh International, and I think it would be a great opportunity for Pittsburgh International and all us Irish people in this region, maybe to go back to see where our great-grandparents came from. But thank you for your report today. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, international flights really have a huge economic impact that we can have. We had a Frankfurt flight that was interrupted by COVID. Obviously, the London flight to British Airways, tens of millions of dollars of that is worth. And when you look at where a Dublin flight would be, we just found out that the Steelers are going to be the exclusive marketing agent for Ireland for the NFL, which we're very proud of. Obviously, coming on the heels of having a former ambassador, Ambassador Rooney, the late Ambassador Rooney, who was so instrumental in making that happen. But many of our corporate companies, whether it be UPMC, whether it be our law firms, whether it be our manufacturing firms, we see those kind of connections really giving us an economic advantage over some of our rival cities and rival regions throughout the country. So Christina Casotis and her team, continue to work. You mentioned Connie Airport. You're right, the corporate air that really continues to flourish and add revenue and keep costs down for the folks there. And obviously the new terminal, $1.4 billion worth of work that's putting a lot of our folks to work, particularly our building trades, is something that's going to be we're very, very proud of when we cut the ribbon on this in early 25.
Yeah, well, please enjoy your trip to Ireland. It's a beautiful country.
Councilmember DeMarco?
Thank you, Mr. President. County Executive Fitzgerald, could you give us an update on, if you have one, on where we stand in relation to trying to get the hydrogen hub? I know we're in competition with a number of other areas with the federal government. Do you have any insight or anything to update there?
I'm part of a team that's working on that, and obviously the governor actually mentioned that in his budget address, how important it is to him for this region and this state to get that hydrogen hub. The market for decarbonization over the next 10 years is going to be significant. I think Secretary Granholm said a worldwide market of $20 trillion as industries after industry, after company, after country after country is looking to decarbonize, including the airline industry being one, but our major manufacturers as well. So we're certainly in a good position because of the resources that we have, not just Marcellus Shale, but our great universities and a lot of the work that's already been done, a very trained workforce that's been working in this field pretty well for the last 15 years, our building trades, who will be able to provide the pipeline and the infrastructure that's needed to help all the industries that will benefit from this. So, the Biden administration had announced that they're going to spend $8 billion on this and break it up into either 4 or 6. So it'll either be $2 billion a region or maybe $1.5 billion a region, depending on how many they do. But I think we're in a pretty good position. I have no timeline of when they're going to make that announcement, but we're going to do everything we can to be successful.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive.
Anyone else this evening? Hearing no one else. Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Before we go on, could you guys just lower your signs or put them on the chair in front of you? I'm not saying you put them away, just lower them so people behind you can see, actually.
We're sitting in the back row. We're good.
Proclamations and certificates, 12724-23.
A proclamation recognizing June 15th, 2023 is Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Allegheny County, sponsored by Councilmember DeMarco.
Folks, I'm very excited today to have standing beside me Kenya Brown from the county's Area Agency on Aging, our own AAA. They don't give triptychs and maps and things like that, but they do a lot of things that are much more important. They help provide services for our elderly. We're here today because I want to recognize the work that they do on behalf of bringing awareness to elder abuse here and declaring June 15th in Allegheny County Elder Abuse Awareness Day. So I have a proclamation for you. I'll read it and then allow you to make a few remarks, okay?
Okay.
Whereas Allegheny County seniors are valued, contributing members of society, imparting a wealth of experience and wisdom in our communities, and whereas 2023 marks the 18th anniversary of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, its recognition will foster a better understanding of abuse and neglect of older adults. And whereas each year an estimated 5 million, or 1 in 10 Americans, are victims of elder abuse and neglect, and they are prime targets for criminals for physical, financial, and emotional abuse. And whereas for each case of elder abuse that is reported, experts believe that nearly 14 cases go unreported. Whereas the Allegheny County Department of Human Services, the Area Agency on Aging, has one purpose: to help Allegheny County residents 60 years of age and older live quality lives by offering a variety of services to choose from, many without regard to income or activity level. And whereas AAA is required through numerous agencies and legislation to deliver these services to the elderly in a coordinated manner, utilizing all community resources in an effort to avoid duplication and ensure comprehensive county-wide coverage. And AAA, Center for Victims, have led the way in providing many services that meet seniors' special needs and reassure them that although they may feel isolated, they are not alone. And whereas Elder Abuse Awareness Day was created to raise awareness and impact the safety of our elders, we would like to encourage those involved to continue their mission and work with our thanks and gratitude for protecting and defending our most vulnerable and valuable generations. Now, therefore, be resolved that I, Allegheny County Council Member Sam DeMarco, do hereby recognize June 15, 2023 as the Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Allegheny County and remind every resident to be cognizant of abuse of our elderly population. Thank you very much, Kenya, for coming.
Thank you.
We'll give you this, and, well, we'll set this there, and then you can.
Okay. Hi, everyone. As Councilman DeMarco said, my name is Kenya Brown, and I am the Abuse in Later Life Grant Project Coordinator, which is a program, a part of the Area Agency on Aging, aims to increase community awareness about elder abuse and enhance the services provided to older adults through a community coordinated response. Yeah. So, on behalf of the Allegheny County Area Agency on Aging, I am truly honored to accept this proclamation in commemoration of World Elder Abuse Day, which is June 15th. As we at the Allegheny County Area Agency on Aging continue our efforts to ensure the safety and well-being of older adults, we want to remind you all that elder abuse affects everyone, including the individuals themselves, their families, and the communities in which they live. For this reason, we ask everyone to join in our efforts to promote awareness surrounding this issue and work to enhance the services being provided, offered to older adults, in hopes that we ensure the safety and well-being of older adults in Allegheny County. If you or anyone you know would like more information on the services provided by the AAA, please contact our senior line at 1-800-344-4319. Once again, I am truly honored to accept this proclamation, and I thank everyone for your support and look forward to making next year's World Elder Abuse Day even more impactful. Thank you.
Come up for a picture?
Good photographer. Wow.
He's got one behind you, too. Okay, next. There's another photographer here. Want to do it?
Got it?
Thank you.
Cassandra Brown.
Thank you.
Miss Brown. Just for 1 second, I want to congratulate you for one thing. And I had a constituent ask me about the senior vegetable market vouchers.
Yes.
When are they coming out?
I'm not 100%.
So I can keep them at bay.
I'm not 100% sure. I can find out and I'll give you a
The
call.
one in the Mon Valley were the most
Yes,
economically challenged district in the whole county.
absolutely.
Need your help.
I do believe that the vouchers are coming out soon, but I'm not 100% sure on the specific date. So I will make sure I
I'm
follow.
a senior, but I'm lucky I can afford a tomato or two.
Yeah, but there are many out there that can. Thank you so much.
Only 35 years old.
Well, you look good. See you.
Thank you. 12725-23.
A proclamation congratulating Bloom's Cut Raid upon their 80th anniversary, sponsored by Council Member Macy.
That will be read into the record. 12726-23.
A proclamation recognizing the McKeesport Garden Club's 90th anniversary, sponsored by Council Member Macy.
And that will also be read into the record. Approval of minutes?
We actually do have a couple of comments on agenda items.
Okay, I skipped those, sorry.
That's all right. First up is Brian Englert.
No, I'm sorry, that was from last meeting.
Okay.
Then the only one remaining is Jim Byrne.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of council. It's always good to be back in this room, spend some time with my colleagues, former colleagues, those of you who are now serving on this body. My name is Jim Byrne. I'm a resident of Millvale Borough. I once served on this body for 8 years, including a period of time as council president. I appreciate what I've seen in recent cycles of your tenure: more independence, more pushback, more assertion of a separate but equal branch of government, as opposed to a perception of a legislative department underneath the umbrella of the executive branch. This charter, this experiment back in 1999 and 2020, was to create a separate but equal branch of government. Do your due diligence, do your investigation, lead by example, lead under your constitutional and your chartered privileges to be that voice, that pushback, that check and balance. I'm here to speak today in support of the motion to override the veto of Bill number 12345-22. And like I said when I was last here on a recent override of a veto, which you should be commended for, this is not something, this ordinance and its contents, in particular living wage, not something that is novel to this body. It has its genesis back at the inception of this council with my colleague, Council President Schwartz, and others. And there was a bill in 2001, Bill 0126. Much of the language in that legislation was strikingly, hauntingly familiar to what you see in the legislation now. And I have from the transcript here some comments that were made that night by one of the proponents. What it says is, we may have not satisfied anyone totally, many may be against it, but we want to give this a chance. They say in here that this bill says, as we as stewards of the county government value people who get up, put in a good day's work, contribute to the economy. We are here to help those at the bottom of the economic ladder with the expectation that there will be an upward lift for our community. This minimalist bill has been worked on without much input by some, but much from others. If you don't want to be an obstructionist and be against everything, offer some constructive amendments, or I'm paraphrasing, get on board. One of the highlights of that bill, as articulated by the proponent on that night, was the minimum wage as a highlight. Using the math at that time, mandatory minimum wage right now would be $17 an hour. Let's be consistent. These were very effective, powerful statements by one of the bill's advocates on 12/4/2001. That advocate's name was Councilmember Rich Fitzgerald. Do the right thing, override the veto. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to presentation of appointments. Or do we have a minute?
We do not have minutes.
No minutes. A presentation of appointments. 12722-23.
Approving the appointment of J. Nicole Rhodes to the Human Relations Commission of Allegheny County for a term to run effective through December 31st, 2026, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
That will go to appointment review 12723-23.
Approving the appointment of Daniel R. Dalton to the Agricultural Land Preservation Board for a term to run effective through December 31st, 2025, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
That will also go to appointment review. Unfinished business, Committee on Economic Development and Housing for the second reading, 12696-23.
An ordinance approving the sale of the county's interest in a parcel of property located at 83 Union Avenue, North Versailles, Pennsylvania, 15137, and identified as Block and Lot 0458H2 for the sale price of $3,300 to Royal Penn Realty Group, LLC, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
Councilman Bukowski.
The Committee on Economic Development and Housing met on June 7th and affirmatively recommended this ordinance to council, and I make that motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion. Jared, would you please take roll?
On the motion to approve, Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Bukowski.
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco.
Yes.
Mr. Dewar.
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi.
Yes.
Mr. Fatulis.
Yes.
Ms. Hallam.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Mr. Macy.
Yes.
Ms. Nacarati-Chapkus.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes.
Mr. Palmacina.
Yes.
Ms. Pritzio. Mr. Walton.
Yes.
President Katina.
Yes.
Ayes 15, no 0. Bill passes.
12697-23.
A resolution providing for a program of temporary exemption from county real property taxes for improvements, including repairs, construction, or reconstruction made to an industrial, commercial, or business property in a deteriorated area in the city of Pittsburgh, County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, pursuant to the Local Economic Revitalization Tax Assistance Act, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
Councilman Bukowski?
The Committee on Economic Development and Housing met on June 7th and affirmatively recommended this resolution to council, and I make that motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Councilman?
I just want to make a comment on this, just so that people, council knows. This is the old YWCA building. It's being converted to housing. And I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening? Hearing no one else, Jared, please take a roll call vote.
On the motion to approve, Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Petkowski.
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco.
Yes.
Mr. Dewar.
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi.
Yes.
Mr. Fatulis.
Yes.
Ms. Hallam.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Mr. Macy.
Yes.
Ms. Nacarati Chapkus.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes.
Mr. Palmacina.
Yes.
Ms. Pritzia. Mr. Walton.
Yes.
President Katina.
Yes.
Ayes 15, no 0. The bill passes.
12698-23.
A resolution providing for a program of temporary exemption from county real property taxes for improvements, including repairs, construction, or reconstruction made on industrial, commercial, or business property in a deteriorated area in the city of Clairton, County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, pursuant to the Local Economic Revitalization Tax Assistance Act, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
Councilman Bukowski?
The Committee on Economic Development and Housing met on June 7th and affirmatively recommended this resolution to full council.
Is there a second?
Make that motion, yeah.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Councilman?
Just a brief remark on this one so that people are aware. From my notes from the meeting, this is approximately 8 acres of brownfield that's going to be recovered so that it can be put back into productive use again, and I am very much in favor of this.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening? Jared, please take a roll call vote.
On the motion to approve, Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Petkowski.
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco.
Yes.
Mr. Dewar.
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi.
Yes.
Mr. Fatulis.
Yes.
Ms. Hallam.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Mr. Macy.
Yes.
Ms. Nacarati Chapkus.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes.
Mr. Palmacina.
Yes.
Ms. Pritzia.
Yes.
Mr. Walton.
Yes.
President Katina.
Yes.
Ayes 15, no 0. The bill passes.
Executive Committee for the second reading, 12718-23 is actually going to be re-referred to the Executive Committee because I'm doing this because there's a presentation tonight on some matters that pertain to this, and I'd like actually that presentation to be made before we vote on this. So we'll move on to Committee on Health and Human Services for the second reading, 12715-23.
An ordinance of the Council of the County of Allegheny ratifying amendments to the Allegheny County Health Department's Rules and Regulations, Article 2, entitled Needle Exchange Program, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
Councilmember Klein?
Thank you, Mr. President. At its meeting on June 15th, the Committee on Health and Human Services considered this ordinance, and it comes before council today with an affirmative recommendation. So at this time, I ask council for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Jared, please take a roll call vote.
On the motion to approve, Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Petkowski.
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco.
Yes.
Mr. Dewar.
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi.
Yes.
Mr. Fatulis.
Yes.
Ms. Hallam.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Mr. Macy.
Yes.
Ms. Nacarati Chapkus.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes.
Mr. Palmacina.
Yes.
Ms. Pritzia.
Yes.
Mr. Walton.
Yes.
President Katina.
Yes.
Ayes 15, no 0. The bill passes.
12716-23.
An ordinance of the Council of the County of Allegheny ratifying an amendment that revises Section 2105.73 Municipal Solid Waste Landfills of the Allegheny County Health Department Rules and Regulations, Article 21, Air Pollution Control, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
Councilmember Klein?
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, at its meeting on June 15th, the Committee on Health and Human Services considered this ordinance, and it comes before council today, again, with an affirmative recommendation, and at this time, I ask council for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Jared, please take roll.
On the motion to approve, Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Petkowski.
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco.
Yes.
Mr. Dewar.
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi.
Yes.
Mr. Fatulis.
Yes.
Ms. Hallam.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Mr. Macy.
Yes.
Ms. Nacarati Chapkus.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Palmasina?
Yes.
Ms. Pritzio? Mr. Walton?
Yes.
President Katina?
Yes.
Ayes 15, no zero, the bill passes.
I'm sorry, are we on 12717-23?
Correct.
Yes.
12717-23.
An ordinance of the Council of the County of Allegheny ratifying amendments to the Allegheny County Health Department's Rules and Regulations, Article 23, entitled Universal Blood Lead Level Testing, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
Councilmember Klein?
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, at its meeting on June 15th, the Committee on Health and Human Services considered this ordinance, and it comes to council today with an affirmative recommendation. And again, I ask council for a motion to approve.
Make that motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Jared, please take roll.
On the motion to approve, Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Bekowski?
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco?
Yes.
Mr. Dewar?
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi?
Yes.
Mr. Fatulis?
Yes.
Ms. Hallam?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Macy?
Yes.
Ms. Nacarati Chapkus?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Palmasina?
Yes.
Ms. Pritzio? Mr. Walton?
Yes.
President Katina?
Yes.
Ayes 15, no zero, the bill passes.
Committee on Parks for the second reading, 12712-23.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, authorizing the Jurassic Alcove Incorporated to have exclusive use of a structure known as Exhibit Building Number 8 on Brownsville Road in the county's South Park, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
Councilmember Palmieri?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. We met a couple of weeks ago, and this particular ordinance is interesting because it's a new venture in South Park, and we're looking forward to the net results in the future. And we met on that day, and this was referred to the chair with the affirmative recommendation. I move for approval.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion. Jared, please take roll.
On the motion to approve, Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Bekowski?
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco?
Yes.
Mr. Dewar?
Yes.
I apologize, Mr. Dewar. Could you repeat that a little louder?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Filiaggi?
Yes.
Mr. Fatulis?
Yes.
Ms. Hallam?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Macy?
Yes.
Ms. Nacarati Chapkus?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Palmasina?
Yes.
Ms. Pritzio?
Yes.
Mr. Walton?
Yes.
President Katina?
Yes.
Ayes 15, no zero, the bill passes.
Committee on Public Works for the second reading, 12713-23.
An ordinance authorizing the County of Allegheny in conjunction with the Department of Public Works and the Law Department to rename the Squaw Run Bridges numbers 1 through 8 located within Fox Chapel Borough and O'Hara Township, Allegheny County, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
Councilmember Bukowski, back to you.
The Committee on Public Works met on June 13th and affirmatively recommended this ordinance to council, and I make that motion.
Is there a
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? See, no discussion. All those, let's do a roll call. Actually, Jared, please take roll.
On the motion to approve, Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Bekowski?
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco?
Yes.
Mr. Dewar?
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi?
Yes.
Mr. Fatulis?
Yes.
Ms. Hallam?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Macy?
Yes.
Ms. Nacarati Chapkus?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Palmasina?
Yes.
Ms. Pritzio?
Yes.
Mr. Walton?
Yes.
President Katina?
Yes.
Ayes 15, no zero, the bill passes.
12714-23.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, authorizing the extinguishment of an existing easement and the grant of a new easement to the Monroeville Municipal Authority to place additional water treatment structures and utility lines within a portion of the county's Boyce Park, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
Councilmember Bukowski.
The Committee on Public Works met on June 13th and affirmatively recommended this ordinance to council for approval. I make that motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion. Jared, please take roll.
On the motion to approve, Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Bekowski?
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco? Mr. Dewar?
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi?
Yes.
Mr. Fatulis?
Yes.
Ms. Hallam?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Macy?
Yes.
Ms. Nacarati Chapkus?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Palmasina?
Yes.
Ms. Pritzio? Mr. Walton?
Yes.
President Katina?
Yes.
Ayes 15, no zero, the bill passes.
Are there any liaison reports this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Palmieri, I missed you.
That's all right. Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. On this past Friday, I had the pleasure of going to the Labor Council had their annual golf outing out at, I'm trying to think of the name of it anyhow, Cedar Brook. Yeah, and I was privileged to be there that day. We had about 270 golfers on two courses. An amazing number of people showed up. And it was just a great day, and I just wanted to mention that and thank all the people who worked so diligently to get that event taken care of and handled well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. New business ordinances, resolutions, anything?
We have none.
Okay, new business motions, 12727-23.
A motion, the Council of Allegheny County urging the Chief Executive to explore cooperative efforts with the City of Pittsburgh to utilize some portion of the former Veterans Administration Hospital in Highland Park as a low-barrier shelter for unhoused individuals, sponsored by Councilmembers Fatulis and Macy.
Councilman Futulis, did you want this to go to committee, or do you want us to?
Well, I'd like to briefly talk about it.
Go ahead.
And I think it's an easy vote, quite frankly. You know, we've been experiencing the homelessness and the shelters and things like that, but I think that this council could make suggestions to the administration, to the city of Pittsburgh alone, to look for locations like Highland Drive, which is located towards the, what's the name of that place down there? The Schumann Center, actually, next door. It was once a center for veterans, the Veteran Hospital, where they treated veterans for multiple things like drug and alcohol abuse and placing them back into society. And I think that with the situation this city and many others are facing, coming up with a facility that doesn't just house you overnight, but gives you a place to live, a place for treatment, a place for being put back into society. The overnight shelter on 2nd Street and the church we've been talking about, they're temporary things. They let you in at night and they turn you loose during the day, and they're not treating anybody. It's just a temporary fix. So I think our solution to the homelessness in this country, but we want to focus here in Allegheny County as a council, that if Highland Drive is not suitable or feasible, maybe we should consider looking at other facilities that are empty in this county, even Mayview Hospital, places that have closed but still available. I think it could work for reasons that it's not in the city, it's isolated, and people would have the grounds to go outside and enjoy the weather, as well as not just being on 2nd Street, you know, and going back into the city. I really believe that as a council, it's important for us to keep ahead of this, and it's not an overnight solution. We all know that. But to look at something like Highland Drive, I think it may be a very great location to help the homeless people. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman DeMarco, do you want to make the motion? Do you want
Yeah, I'd like a motion to vote on it, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay.
Second.
Motion has been made and second. We'll go into discussion. Councilman DeMarco.
Yeah, just a point of discussion. I mean, we need to recognize that that property belongs to the federal government.
It did.
You know, well, who does it belong to now?
The state.
So the state has purchased and owns that property?
They gave it to the state.
Then perhaps they would be willing to do something through Human Services or something like that with
Yeah.
the money they give us. Okay. I just wanted to bring up that was, it's great that we're looking for other locations, but that was a potential obstacle with that one facility.
Any other discussion? Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed,
Aye.
motion carries.
That was late.
12728-23.
A motion of the Council of Allegheny County urging the General Assembly to consider and with all deliberate speed enact provisions allowing for excused absences relating to mental health for Pennsylvania primary and secondary education students, sponsored by Councilmember Bennett.
Councilmember Bennett, did you want to talk to this?
Thank you, President Katina. Yeah, just briefly, we did a proclamation. I sponsored it a month or so ago for Teen Mental Health Day, and what one of the requests was from those teens was for there to be excused mental health days through the schools so that they can have excused absences when they need a mental health day. So just trying to close the loop and let those young people know that they were heard through this motion towards the state to act on it. Thank you, President Katina.
Thank you. Would you like to make that motion then?
I would like the motion for council to approve this.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion at this point? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. 12729-23.
A motion of the Council of Allegheny County overriding Chief Executive Rich Fitzgerald's veto of Bill Number 12345-22, entitled An Ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending and supplementing the Administrative Code of Allegheny County, Article 1009, entitled Personnel Policies, through the creation of a new Section 5-1009.09, entitled Non-Salaried Employee Pay, in order to establish a uniform policy for governing the payment of county employees. That's sponsored by Council President Katina.
Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion about this bill. I'm sure there'll be more discussion tonight. I would like to make the motion to approve at this point in time.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. We'll now open it up to discussion. So do we want to, before we want to just go down the line to try to, because everyone's going to have, obviously, I think, comment at this point in time. So we'll begin with Councilwoman Bennett.
Thank you, President Katina. So I would just echo what I said the last time. Please do not make our county budget's balance on or balance its budget on the backs of Black women and workers. I want to thank Public Source for actually picking that up and actually providing the statistics around what I was saying. And so please, if you all haven't seen that article, please look at it. And I would also say that as a county who is looking to call on corporations and agencies to pay their workers a living wage, that we should be the example in that. And so I look forward to voting to override this veto. Thank you, President Katina.
You're welcome. Councilman Bukowski.
In the county executive's remarks earlier today, he mentioned that there were 1,600 job openings amongst the county. I suspect that at least a portion of those are salary-related vacancies.
Good. Or is that, I'm sorry, okay. Councilmember DeMarco?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would go back to some of the remarks that I made the last time. You know, one, January 1st of next year, 2024, the minimum wage here for all full-time employees of Allegheny County is going to be $18 an hour. That's the same amount it's going to be under this bill. Secondly, I questioned whether it was in our purview or our ability to be able to take it past this. I don't believe it is. I know others disagree. That's fine. My belief is it isn't. Third, it was presented to us that this bill, raising it to $18 an hour next January, then 19 and 20, is going to cause something called wage compression within the county. And the administration put out a press release saying that this could potentially cost a $30 million tax increase. One of the things I haven't seen from council or in any part of the discussions up to this point is where the money's going to come from. I've heard folks say, well, you know, we have $1 billion budget. We'll be able to find it somewhere. Well, we just don't have, you know, money just sitting around just waiting for us to figure out what we want to do with it. So if we're going to take money from one place and move it over to someplace else, I think we owe it to the taxpayers and the people out there to tell them what's going to take and suffer, what they're going to lose if we take and do this. You know, and again, we're talking about not just full-time employees, that's one thing. We're talking about seasonal and part-time. We're talking about high school or college kids that are working part-time in the snack bar, potentially going from $12 or $14 an hour to $20. You know, that's a 50% increase. And again, what we're doing here is I believe that we're setting a precedent. And we're going to have a bunch of other folks coming to us wanting us to get in the way in between the administration and them as they bargain for wages and contracts moving forward. And that's the reason why I'm still a no on this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Dewar?
Thank you, President Katina. Not much to say that I haven't already said on this bill. I did just want to say that I appreciated the executive and his veto override going into such depth and in terms of his rationale. And one of the things I've been talking about with the folks who have talked to me about this over the past week or so is this is how government works sometimes. The executive is, in terms of, following by his own law department and his solicitor's opinion that he feels that we don't have the ability to do this, and our solicitor has given us an opinion that we do. Sometimes different bodies disagree. That's how this stuff works. And I would ask, my colleagues tonight in terms of how they're going to vote, take that into account. And if you supported this bill the first time and believe we have the power to do it then, I don't know what would have changed that opinion heading into the vote tonight. So, but I don't, I hope this isn't. I have never seen this as a personal thing. I believe both bodies in this case have been operating under the, the advice of their respective solicitors and legal opinions, and we will do what is necessary and suggested from those entities. So that's it. Thank you, President Katina.
Thank you. Councilmember Falaji?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, President Katina. I do have something I would like to say. And my newness continues to astound no one. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I realize that in order to explain my vote, I will have to play defense, and that is never good unless, of course, you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. I will not be able to articulate all of the reasons that I believe this bill is ill-conceived, but I will try to focus on important key points. First, to begin with, from my first recollection of this bill, it did not sit right with me. How or why would council wade into this personnel wage issue when none of us actually were trained in this area? So I took a look at its history. On June 21st of 2022, it was referred to Committee on Government Reform. In my opinion, it should have been a Budget Committee referral. It would have allowed for more lengthy and in-depth information to have been presented. Budget implications would have been made a primary focus. It was not. Instead, it was sent to Government Reform, the committee chaired by the bill's sponsor, ensuring that there would be no real check and balance to the deliberation process. Members have told the public that there was plenty of time for all interested parties to put forth their information and objections, so any expressed uneasiness was actually only yins trying to delay. I strongly disagree and will not be embarrassed into silence. I will admit that as a newcomer to this council in April of 2022, the June 22 referral meant nothing to me. I felt like a pirate bobblehead trying to get my bearings as to council proceedings. I attended and still do attend most meetings, even those committees on which I do not sit, like the Government Reform Committee. I wanted to get up to speed on the issues quickly. This bill was not opened up for discussion by the chair until April 4th of 2023. And was limited to 45 minutes due to a regular council meeting afterwards, and the agenda was filled with 5 bills also up for discussion. The next meeting was on April 18th. It was the same. Time was limited to 45 minutes with every question that we were permitted to ask. Yes, council members were instructed by the chair to raise your hands like school children so we could eventually be called on to give input. The May 9th meeting was met with the same resistance and little opportunity for substantive debate. It was a chaotic event, an unproductive process that produced a bill that we have today. We essentially spent less than 3 hours over a year period to deliberate the merits and pitfalls of the bill and to become as educated on the topic as possible. Clearly, that is not enough time to discuss fiscal notes, public sentiment, budgetary implications, legal ramifications, compression effects, etc. This file is filled with information that we need to be up to speed on to make decisions like this. It was, in my opinion, shameful because the dismissive attitude displayed and adopted for this committee procedure was not professional in the least and made no mention of the concern for spending millions of dollars of taxpayers' money. And please spare me the platitudes of the drop in the bucket compared to the billion-dollar budget. The bottom line is it's not our money. Second, I still have a problem with the legal premise of whether or not council actually has the authority to act on this bill. I was the council person who actually requested the legal opinions on this matter, and it was like pulling teeth to make that happen. I won't bore you with all the limited legal jargon that I have left in my lawyer bag of tricks, but suffice it to say that I am fairly certain that one or more of these provisions will not pass muster with the courts, and we will be spending more taxpayer dollars defending the inevitable suit, despite the sponsor's assertion that it's unclear who would bear the financial burden. Make no mistake, it will be the taxpayers of Allegheny County, all of our constituents. The last two suits that we defended in 2022 and 23 alone cost taxpayers nearly $500,000, taxpayer dollars. Finally, in my self-imposed discovery process to investigate the bill and its origins, I was struck by the definitions section of the bill and was curious as to why they were included and also why they were not mentioned by the sponsors. In my former line of work, definitions are often overlooked in hidden areas of exploitation. In that pursuit, I discovered that an earlier version of this bill existed, Bill 11893-21. It was introduced a year prior by the same sponsors, but failed to move forward. The bill gives us insight into the motivations and ultimate agenda, or angle, if you will, of the bill's purpose. 11893-21 shows us why the definitions are so important. I suggest that the old bill failed because it expressly included language that attempted to classify jail inmates as county workers, and it expressly provided that Allegheny County jail inmates would be covered under the wage bill. The sponsors are using the hardworking county employees as pawns in a plan to classify jail inmates who perform cleaning and kitchen duties as actual county employees with all the rights and privileges and county benefits, including making $20 an hour. The intent is clear and hiding in relative plain sight. They intend to use this bill as a gateway to amend and reinsert the jail inmate language back into the bill. Make no mistake, I am absolutely 100% behind all of the 7,000 hardworking people that provide innumerable services to our residents. I will not now, though, and never will support a bill that is a ruse designed to sneak in jail inmates as official county employees. Thank you, President Catino.
You're welcome. Councilman Futulis, hard act to follow. Good luck.
I was just going to say that. You know, I don't think I can follow that. I should have went to law school. It sure was. Well, as you all know, I didn't vote for it the last time because the ordinance, in my opinion, was flawed. I was not against people making $18 an hour, or 19 or 20 for that matter, but I was not really particular fond of the fact that a 16-year-old working in a concession stand should make the same amount of money as a full-time employee. We also discussed tonight, Jim Byrne, that in 2001, I believe, he said that Rich Fitzgerald had this legislation, and quite frankly, it failed. It didn't pass. But the question is, was it legal then? That's the question. So everybody's acting like it was back then, but now today it's not. So that's the question. Was it legal back then, 22 years ago? That's another one. So bottom line is, I had conversations with county employees, not willingly. They called me. One was a health board inspector and wanted to know why she was not going to make any more than some kid selling ice cream in a concession stand. The unions were talking about it. They're already meeting, and they're already discussing what's going to happen because of the compression issues. And I don't blame them, quite frankly. I'd be right in line with them. I'd be holding my contract up in the air, too, because why would you purposely punish a full-time employee to pay a young teenager the same amount of money? They have families. These other kids are high school students. And they're happy to make $12, $15 an hour, whatever they were making. So, and I heard another one from I don't know the department, but he schedules people for hospital visits through Access, and he was complaining. He was a union rep as well, and he said, "Why did I not vote for it?" He says, "Don't you think I deserve a raise?" I said, "Yeah, of course you did. But do you think the people in the concession stands and lifeguards should get as much as you?" And he said, "Absolutely not." And I said, "You're right. I should pay you more, not them." So that was the question. And of course, the big issue is, are we going to go to court? Are we just going to let it ride if this gets overrode? I don't know the answer to that right now, and there's going to be a cost associated with it? Possibly. The taxpayer money. So I guess we'll see what happens. That's all I got.
Councilmember Hallam?
Thank you, President Katina. So I just want to focus on the bill that we actually are voting on tonight in the language of this bill. I hear a lot of people talking about, 18 in January, $19 an hour next January, $20 an hour the next January. But it's important to remember that this isn't just hourly workers who are benefiting from this legislation. It's also people who the same amount salary as $18 an hour would be $37,440 a year. If you make $19 an hour, that's $39,520 a year. Even $20,000, which the bill gets us to in 2 years, is only $41,600 a year. So I want to know if any of my colleagues who are standing up here advocating against this bill right now, do you make less than $41,600 a year? Mm-hmm. You make less than $41,600 a year.
I'm on Social Security.
Any of my colleagues sitting up here advocating against this bill make $41,600 a year. When you say it like that, that is not even at the cost of living for a single person with a child. We're not just talking about high school kids working in concession stands. We're not just talking about lifeguards, although yes, I believe that they deserve a living wage too. We are talking about people who have worked at the county for decades and still aren't making $41,600 per year. That is a shame, and I will never support anything or anyone who advocates against paying somebody a wage that they can survive off of, that they can support themselves and support their families off of. Because right now we have county employees, not children, but dedicated county employees who have been working here and giving us day in and day out of their lives for years, who still aren't making $41,000 a year. This bill will get them to that. We have to take 2 years to get that, but that's okay. It's a starting point. $37,440,000 a year will be the minimum wage in Allegheny County for a salaried worker come January. $39,520 a year next January. And the cap of this bill in 2 years' time, $41,600 a year. Just want to make sure everybody has those numbers in their head while they're correlating it to hourly workers making $18, $19, $20 an hour. We are also talking about salaried workers, people with families, people who deserve a fair wage, people that we owe it to thank them for all they have done for Allegheny County, and hope that with this wage increase, we can keep them, and we can make sure that fewer positions throughout the county go unfilled, that fewer of our buildings throughout the county are understaffed day after day after day. That's what we're voting on tonight. So I will be voting yes to override the county executive's veto, and I hope all my colleagues will do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Klein?
Thank you, President Katina. I don't have anything to add. I'm prepared to vote.
Thank you. Councilmember Macy?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. I've sat on this council for over 17 years. I'm the most senior person up here. And obviously, I came from the steel mills from the Mon Valley. I was a union officer, I was a steel worker, and also a teamster. I believe in a fair wage. But there again, I let my union negotiate that. I didn't let the foreman in the mill negotiate it, the superintendent. My union negotiated that. Now, tell me, I'll tell you, if I could have made as much money not being a union member, why belong to the union then? Well, it's a possibility that some of these people that are union members now, if they see the wages are the same amount as their colleagues are making, then why belong to the union? So they may quit the union because they could save some money. Now, we talk about the costs, the compression costs. We saw in the newspaper or heard on the news it costs anywhere from $10 to $30 million. If you're a business person and you have added costs, what do? You raise the price of your product to make up the difference, or you lay people off. So if we don't have that kind of money in our budget, what are we going to do to balance the budget? In addition to that, we've talked about the fund balance over the years, that it gave us a higher bond rating so we could borrow money for projects and bridges and roads and buildings that's owned by the county. What happens if we take that money and pay for the added wages? I'm not against anybody having a fair wage. I'm not against people making more money. I had to make more money raising 3 children. What did I do? I went out and looked for jobs. I had 3 jobs. So if you're not satisfied here, maybe you need to move on. I don't know. But on the other hand, think about the benefits you're receiving as an employee here. Now keep in mind, if we raise the cost of the hourly wage, benefit costs go up. So there's an additional cost. And going back to just Business 101, if you need money to pay this, where do you get it from? You raise your product or you lay off people. In our case here, it would be the same thing. Or we could just go after the taxpayers and, hey, they'll pay, so what? Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nakray Chapkus.
Thank you, President Katina. So in addition to my previous comments, I wanted to today read an excerpt from the article that Councilmember Bennett had discussed or referenced earlier. Raising minimum pay for county workers would disproportionately impact women and Black employees, many of whom work as nursing assistants in the county's nursing homes, assistants in Allegheny County Department of Human Services and the Public Defender's offices, and administrative workers who keep the gears of government turning in areas ranging from elections to property assessments. It's also worth noting that the county paid $34.9 million in overtime costs in 2022. Perhaps if we are able to hire and retain talented staff, those overtime hours could be decreased substantially. And lastly, I'll just make note of something I had mentioned previously to just be mindful of yet again, that Pittsburgh falls in the top 12 of cities with the lowest real minimum wage. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Palmieri.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really don't have anything more to add to this other than the fact that I'd just like to get on with the vote. Thank you.
Councilmember Palmasina.
No, thank you. I'm ready to vote.
Councilmember Pritzia.
Yeah, thank you, President Katina. Everyone deserves a living wage, and a base must be set to ensure all county employees earn a fair wage and rectify particularly the disparate impact currently felt by Black and women county employees. As a proud dues-paying member of the USW Local 3403 and DSA, I stand in solidarity with my fellow council members to override the chief executive's veto. This is but a small step in addressing the wealth inequality so prevalent in the county and the country in general.
Thank you. Councilman Walton.
I find it very amazing that now, in this instance, we want to extol the virtues and the disparities of Black women, you know, with the rampant racism, sexism in the history of this country. Now, when we talk about wages and disparate treatment and when it's politically expedient, oh, you're screwing Black women. I think that's bullshit. Plain and simple. When we talk about the public defender's office, when we talk about the Kane hospitals, just in our last budget session, the Public Defender's Office negotiated and had approved by an overwhelming margin a new collective bargaining agreement. The Kane hospitals are represented by the United Steelworkers Union. That will negotiate a contract for them that will be equitable. there will be fair market value. So I think it is very disingenuous of us to try to play that race card. I've been a steel worker since 1968. I've negotiated contracts since 1981. So I understand how the system works. And I firmly believe, and historically have fought for, living wages. And I believe we should pay living wages. I don't believe that our unions that represent workers here in this county negotiate undervalued contracts. Their responsibility is to extract as much as they possibly can, as much as the market will bear and legitimize. I believe in fair work for fair wages, and that is where we should be, and that's where we must be. Now, I voted no last time because I thought the language was flawed. That it was basically flawed. Not about any of the extraneous crap. The language was flawed. And I'm going to vote no this time because I believe the language to be flawed. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, not to belabor this point, I think we all know at this point in time all the issues and arguments surrounding the bill. We've heard them tonight, we've heard them in our last regular meeting throughout the committee process, and therefore I don't see any purpose in restating them yet again. But I do want to talk about something more basic, reality. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology has established an online calculator for poverty wages and living wages, organized by family size and the county for which they live. The calculator is updated just after the first quarter of each year. If you look at the website on which the calculator appears, you'll quickly see here in Allegheny County, a single parent with 2 children would have to make $43.45 an hour to earn a living wage. In a household with 2 working adults and 2 children, both of these adults would need to earn $23.98 in order to make a living wage. This is right now. This is today, not in 2024, not in 2025, and not in 2026, which is when this ordinance would begin paying county employees a minimum of $20 per hour. I think all of us up here and our chief executive have at one time or another endorsed a proposition that we want our employees to be able to support their families, and that we want to be able to attract and retain the best possible individuals to work for all of Allegheny County. And that truly makes a great deal of sense, because we're not the faces of this county. The people who actually do the work are the faces of the county. How often do our residents interact directly with us, or with the chief executive, or with the county manager, or the department directors, in comparison to how often they interact directly with the county employees that answer the phones on a daily basis, who represent us in all of the county parks, who do the road work, who to provide the health care advice, who administer our elections and voter registration, who address our human services concerns, who safeguard our lives in the county pools, and all the rest. Just to get into this building, every member of the public has to interact directly with county employees in one fashion or another. Our residents, our taxpayers, our visitors, and our voters may have opinions about those of us who are up here as individuals, but their opinions of county government overall are far more often the result of their interactions with county employees than with us. All of that which begs the question, why then is the chief executive so resistant to setting minimum pay rates that even approach living wages for those employees, the very people who represent what's actually the best and brightest about county government to the residents they work for each and every day? We've certainly seen a willingness on the executive's part to grant significant pay raises to individuals at the top of the organizational chart, so it can't be he's just against significant pay raises in and of themselves. We've seen a referendum question regarding the creation of a dedicated funding stream for a county's children's initiative. Despite the referendum's failure in 2018, the chief executive created the Children's Initiative anyway and did so with a dedicated funding stream in 2021. By 2023, the initiative's annual operating budget was over $1 million. So it can't be that he opposes significant new operating budget expenditures. We know this very chief executive proposed an ordinance setting a living wage for county employees when he was a member of council back in 2001. So it can't be the concept of a living wage is problematic for him. We know that part and parcel of the executive proposed 2001 living wage ordinance was an annual increase pegged to inflation, and there were no limits to these increases. The chief executive was perfectly fine with imposing an indeterminate annual budget increase for employees' salaries each and every year until the end of time. So budget increases and/or future uncertainty cannot be the reason for this opposition. The county solicitor and county manager have at various times advanced arguments that creating a minimum wage for county employees via ordinance somehow violates applicable labor law. But the chief executive abandoned these arguments in his veto message. So it doesn't appear that he even believes them to be correct, any more than the county solicitor or I do. Amidst all of this inconsistency, it's become impossible to tell what exactly the executive really thinks about this issue. He's taken so many contradictory and inconsistent positions that what he say or does no longer has any meaning, in my opinion. But speaking as the president of this body that actually determines and enacts the county budgets, I want to be crystal clear about something this evening. I cannot and I will not ever support subsidizing our operating budget by underpaying our employees, which is precisely what this executive appears to want to do. One of my colleagues, Mr. Klein, said it very well at our last meeting. Agreeing to work for the county should not necessarily entail taking a vow of poverty. Balancing our budget must never be dependent upon forcing our employees to truly take that vow on a daily basis. Furthermore, I would just like to say that if we just maybe look at some of the issues at our county jail and try to correct some of those concerns, we might be able to save the county $45 million in a few years, because just over the past few years, that's what we've paid in overtime at the county jail, and it's spiraling out of control on a daily basis. So maybe if we dig in and really try to correct the problems and get to what's going on over there, we could easily pay for this and basically pay our employees a living wage. Thank you. Jared, please take the vote.
On the motion to override, Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Bekowski.
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco. No. Mr. Dewar.
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi.
Nope.
Mr. Fatulis.
No.
Ms. Hallam.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Mr. Macy.
No.
Ms. Nacaretti-Chapkus.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes.
Mr. Palmestina.
Yes.
Ms. Pritzio. Mr. Walton.
No.
President Katina.
Yes.
Ayes 10, noes 5, the motion passes.
We'll now move on to 12730-23.
Motion of the Council of Allegheny County urging the Chief Executive and Department of Human Services in cooperation with the City of Pittsburgh and the nonprofit unhoused persons, medical, business, and other communities to explore how aspects of the model for delivery of services to unhoused persons in Houston, Texas might be successfully carried over to Allegheny County, sponsored by President Katina.
One of my colleagues, Councilman DeMarco, actually mentioned this at the homeless hearing, the closing of the homeless shelter. And this is something that I was surprised that he mentioned, because it was something I was looking at before he actually mentioned it. So I'd actually like to refer this to committee, because I think if we can sort of mirror and get everyone on the same page as to what Houston really did over the past 10 years or so with their homeless population, I think it would be a great win for Allegheny County. So I'd like to refer that to Health and Human Services.
Good idea.
Notification of contracts, 12731-23.
A communication summarizing approved executive actions for the month of May 2023.
Is there a motion to receive? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. We'll now have public comment on general items.
We have a fairly large number of individuals who signed up. First is Sonia Saylor.
Not here?
Next is Lisa Graves Marucci.
She's here.
Hello, thank you. My name's Lisa Graves Marcucci. I'm a lifelong resident of the Mon Valley, grew up in West Mifflin. I now reside in Pleasant Hills. I work for a nonprofit called the Environmental Integrity Project. And for 18 months, several groups, including ours, have been conducting a benzene monitoring project using federally approved monitoring methods that capture 2-week average concentration of benzene using passive sorbent tube samplers known as method 325B. The samples were analyzed by a U.S. EPA certified lab, and this is the same monitoring methodology and protocol that is now required at all U.S. refineries. The project we conducted found the presence of benzene at all 8 monitoring locations in the Mon Valley, and these were all on personal properties. On several occasions throughout the 18 months, the spikes were extremely high, which you're going to hear testimony about that tonight. And we are worried not only for the fence line communities, but for the workers. The benzene is a problem, and it is a concern, and to our knowledge has never been monitored in this way before. We are asking for common sense solutions. We are asking for everyone, all hands on deck, County Health Department, PADEP, and US EPA, to immediately inspect and identify the sources of the benzene leaks in the Mon Valley at all 3 U.S. Steel plants, ensure that all the permits are meeting the Clean Air Act requirements, and to immediately require the installation of fence line monitoring at all 3 Mon Valley works to protect the workers' health and the communities. Doing a little bit of research, the cost, that's probably the first question people will ask. What will it cost U.S. Steel to put those monitors in? Using EPA cost estimates for similar fence line monitoring programs, it would only cost U.S. Steel an average of $200,000 per year. That represents less than 0.1% of their annual net profits, which last year was $2.5 billion. We ask for your help in seeking that common sense installation of fence line monitoring and an immediate action to resolve the benzene problem. Thank you. I have 2 handouts that if I can make those available.
Give them to her.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next.
Next up is Anna Hoffman.
Hello. I'm Anna Hoffman. I'm Director of Air Quality Engagement at the Carnegie Mellon University CREATE Lab. I'm here to follow up Lisa's comments with a more detailed picture of the data that we've collected. Air quality monitoring conducted by EIP and the CMU CREATE Lab and the Breathe Project detected benzene at 8 residential locations in the Mon Valley near the U.S. Steel plants. 3 of these locations exceeded public health thresholds for long-term exposure to benzene, which is why we believe U.S. Steel should install fence line monitoring around their plants. According to the EPA Toxic Release Inventory, Clarendon Coke Works self-reported 97% of industrial benzene emissions in Allegheny County. 2 sampling locations are particularly concerning, and these 2, which you'll see on the handout, there's a map. Site 01A and 02 show 18-month sampling period averages at levels at or above 3 micrograms per cubic meter, which is the California EPA's reference exposure level. According to Cal EPA, continuous or repeated 8-hour exposures to 3 micrograms per cubic meter of benzene over years could increase the risk of non-cancerous health effects such as damage to blood cells and weakened immune system. And according to ATSDR, any level of inhaled benzene puts people at a higher risk of cancer. As you can see, we're highly concerned about the workers inside the U.S. Steel plants that are having these 8-hour exposures repeatedly, as well as the people living in the Mon Valley. For a closer look at what created this high total study average, in October of 2022, monitoring found that the 2-week average concentration of benzene at 2 residences near the U.S. Steel Clarendon Coke Works and the U.S. Steel Irvin Works exceeded 10 micrograms per cubic meter and 16 micrograms per cubic meter. I would be very happy to come back to County Council with more detailed readings from ACHD benzene monitoring, as well as the CMU Create Lab spectrometer, which gives a highly accurate benzene reading. And both of these are located near the Government Liberty Air Monitoring Station. Federal rules require refineries to take action to investigate and reduce benzene emissions where benzene concentrations exceed an annual average of 9 micrograms per cubic meter. And we think the installation of fence line monitoring is essential to protect the health of local communities and plant workers. And U.S. Steel can afford this fence line monitoring, which would indicate public health concerns for county government and EPA much sooner than this process, which has taken 18 months for us to bring this information to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Next up is Alex Pegoreski.
Not here?
Patrick Campbell.
Not here?
Marwan Sadaka.
Not here?
Chase Archer Evans.
Not here?
Eric Miskovich.
Name's Eric Miskovich. This was 5 minutes long. I narrowed it down and Fitzgerald left, so we could hopefully have it at 3 minutes. It's entitled The Cure for Hopelessness in the City of Pittsburgh and Beyond. I have firsthand experience and knowledge with the building I'll be speaking of, and additional insight and a unique perspective as a person who experienced homelessness at one point in my life. Same with addiction, same with mental health issues, same with my overall disgust with our governmental lip service and bloat, except Ms. Hallam. She left. She should be the next mayor, and I am cordially inviting any local, state, or county official that may feel offended to impress me and compel me to vote for you next term. I'm not seeking any ego-driven validation, nor does money motivate me. I'm not up here trying to say smart-sounding things worthy of an applause. I'm here to offer the solution. SCI Pittsburgh is the solution to this problem. The new side, erected in the late 1980s at great expense to the taxpayers, is ideal as it has central air. The former cells are roomy, have sinks and toilets. There's adequate lighting, electrical outlets. The doors lock, which is an issue for folks experiencing homelessness. Their property gets lost or stolen, for example. Many people are not ready to enter transitional housing or drug treatment programs, and it is a waste of taxpayers' monies to compel people to enter treatment if they are not ready to enter treatment. This doesn't make them criminals. It just means that they're not ready. And a lot of our homeless folks are extremely intelligent, and, go figure, some of them use drugs or alcohol to numb the pain of witnessing our governmental officials taking huge amounts of money out of public coffers and offer little to nothing in return. Tonight, I'm willing to volunteer my time 24/7 until further notice. If Mr. Fitzgerald or any decent, reasonable official willing to flex his or her muscles will get the key from the state to open the door to our new shelter, tentatively named the Haven of Hope, located at 3001 Beaver Avenue, Pittsburgh. There are 500 beds there. It shall be low barrier, first name, last initial, just like an AA or an NA meeting. You can stay as long as you want or need to. Now you technically have a home. Now you have hope. Now you can ponder life and count your blessings. And now this 20th day of June 2023, we have solved in total the homeless crisis. It comports with Martin versus Boise, and it is expandable. Do you need a safe, legal place to park your trailer? We can do that, as there's 20 acres, just 2.5-mile walk, bike, or bus ride outside of town. It will be the one-stop shop for all things hope-related and shall become a model of great things to come, not only for Pittsburgh, but for the entire nation. Stop putting the cart before the horse. You cannot develop the economy first and then, as an afterthought, the community second. Quit being so silly. Quit being so greedy. 10 seconds?
10 seconds.
In closing, a good friend of mine named John is serving a life sentence. I started doing time with him at Schumann when I was 13. He got out of prison in 2018. He had no skills, and he was compelled to shack up with a man that forced him to engage in sex acts for housing. John got tired of that, and he killed that man. I would let John babysit my firstborn child, but the system created a situation that turned him into a murderer. Thanks.
Thank you. Next.
Next up is Jacob Poole.
Hi, I'm Jacob Poole, formerly Yakov, brought to America from Eastern Europe as a child. And so we just celebrated the end of slavery in America yesterday, a federal holiday, and I kind of laughed the entire day and went around Pittsburgh handing out 1,500 flyers, raising awareness of child trafficking and modern slavery in the Pittsburgh area, because I was literally made for money as a child by people in Westmoreland County and Allegheny County financing child trafficking manufacturing operations in Eastern Europe in the 80s and 90s. So in response, slave traders there targeted and abducted Jewish families of Einstein and Nobel Prize winners because Pittsburgh has Carnegie Mellon University, Pittsburgh National Energy Lab, nuclear research facilities, UPMC cancer research. So they're consumers of Einstein's. So people literally financed operations to target extended family of Einstein and John von Neumann, Nobel Prize-winning Jewish scientists in Europe, abduct their families, hold them captives in basements, and force them to birth as many as 13 children to sell for money so Americans can adopt them and put them through Carnegie Mellon and also all sorts of things. So I was in European police custody when I was 10 years old, and they stamped my birth certificate with River Market because that's the best they could do. There was no police, so it was so out of control. There were thousands and thousands of children were being made in Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania, Yugoslavia, so Americans can buy them and adopt them using church networks, put them through Carnegie Mellon University of Pittsburgh, call in rescue operations, using the words refugee and orphan, using federal funding, state funding, county funding, because once you say it's an orphan and put them in church network, you have federal funding, state funding, county funding all available to put them through Carnegie Mellon, University of Pittsburgh, to make them work at National Energy Lab. I'm in the Pittsburgh area alone for 27 years, isolated. I have medical issues given to me by child trafficking medical persons who literally entered my body as a child so they can hold me captive in the Pittsburgh area for forced labor exploitation. I'm here in front of you as a person literally made and sold for money. Pennsylvania doesn't have any state laws, county laws, local laws for anti-slavery. That means that it's not defined. No one's looking for it. There are no laws, ordinances defined for what child trafficking look like, what slavery looks like at the state level, at the county level, at the city level, at the local level. Because of that, I'm standing in front of you as a person made and birthed for money using eugenics experimentation in Eastern Europe, financed by people in the Pittsburgh area. Because you have no laws, it's out of control. And there are thousands of people like me in the Pittsburgh area, all being silenced, hurt, poisoned, disappeared, and deported. And I can get a job, but I've been threatened with deportation if I don't shut up.
Next up is Tom Bailey.
He's here.
Good evening. My name is Tom Bailey. I appreciate you staying to the end of the meeting to hear us. I'm a retired high school teacher. I taught government and economics. I'm also the secretary for Valley Clean Air Now, which is one of the organizations that has worked with EIP and Carnegie Mellon Labs. So I ask you to think about what they presented you today. Two of our members are the locations of those sites on the maps that you looked at. Two of our members are living with those benzene emissions. And as you heard them explain, if they were living outside of an oil refinery, the oil refinery would be required by federal law to inspect and do the testing to see if the benzene amounts are, in fact, excessive. So we have gone, and we're trying to get the EPA to do the testing. We have not got a result. Here we are in front of Allegheny County Council. We're asking you to take what is happening to our members Seriously. Because where else are they going to go to try to get it addressed? I ask you to take your position of power as a former government teacher and to close down the plant temporarily to do the testing. You do the testing. You see if the benzene is elevated. If you don't, then reopen the plant. But I don't see where the public is supposed to go. If the federal agency will not respond, and you act on behalf of the EPA, I think, as the local Environmental Clean Air Act enforcement. So please take this seriously. It affects people day in and day out, and we hope that you'll take your responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Zachary Barber.
Hello, good evening. I will try to keep this short so you don't hear my stomach growl. My name is Zach Barber. I'm the Clean Air Advocate with Penn Environment. I'm a resident here in Allegheny County, and I'm here to underscore the comments that we've heard tonight in support of investigating high benzene levels in the Mon Valley. Benzene is a cancer-causing pollutant. When I was getting my degree in chemistry, we worked with benzene, and we weren't allowed to take it out from under the hood so that it would get vacuumed away so we wouldn't get exposed to it. And it is being released at and being measured at very high levels at residential homes in the Mon Valley. We have a good idea of where this pollution is coming from. About 40% of all the industrial benzene reported in Pennsylvania comes from one facility, U.S. Steel's Clarendon Coke Works. And like Lisa and Anna said, that's about 97% of the industrial benzene here in Allegheny County. All we're asking are for three simple things that are well within the county's authority to do, and county council, both in its oversight and its budgetary functions, has the power to help here too. One, we would like council to organize a hearing on this to ask questions of the health department, of the industrial polluters, of residents, and to investigate what can be done to ensure that residents are being protected. Secondly, we know that the hardworking officials at the county health department need more help as they go up against U.S. Steel, one of the largest companies in the region, who can hire a whole floor of corporate attorneys to gum up and fight everything that the health department does. They need more funding. And so that's a place where through the budgetary process, you all can have a role in helping to ensure that we have the inspectors and the regulators and the monitors we need. And then finally, the county health department does clearly under Article 21 have the authority to require the fence line monitoring we've been hearing about. And so we don't need legislative action, we need oversight action, we need our administrative agencies to step to the plate here. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a good rest of your night.
Thank you. Next.
Pamela Bruno.
Not here.
Desiree Carbone.
Not here.
Greg Kachansky.
Not here.
Patricia Laffey.
Not here. Oh, sorry.
Oops.
My name is Patricia Laffey, Sister Patricia Laffey. I'm a sister of charity, and I am a member of the Penn Environment Group that is here to support the requests that were made. I am not a scientist. I can't speak to any of the data that you received, but I can speak on behalf of the poor and the people who have no choice about where they live. We really need to have your support to support them. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Joe Marizzi.
Not here.
Carla McNamara.
Not here.
Kathy Westman.
Not here.
Adrienne Young.
She's here. Is there echo in here?
Hi, my name is Dr. Adrienne Young. I'm a retired internist. I live in Edgeworth, Pennsylvania. I just want to put my 2 cents in that we are very concerned about the air quality. We've been getting, even before the Canadian wildfires, we were getting more air quality warnings, probably once or twice a week in our weather reports, and that is more than we used to get. Air pollution is a silent killer. You don't know it's a problem, and I don't have terrible asthma, and I don't have terrible heart failure or anything. So you don't know, but on the other hand, as we're hearing, it catches up with you and may be a problem down the road. You know, we thank ourselves, pat ourselves on the back of how much better the Pittsburgh air is than it used to be with the steel. Well, in terms of looking at other areas of the country, we don't have good air quality. We don't. And I think we can't really tout our air quality if it's lousy. So my comment to people who ask how the air is here, well, it's not good. I don't always smell it, but we can tell by the things that are coming out and the fact that we kowtow to, you know, big corporate sponsors in the county, and just next to it with the Shell plant. Shell plant has been having a lot of flares, and they're now being fined $10 million because their flares and their pollution has been excessive. And this is what happens if you're not careful and you're not watching them closely. They will exceed and they will ruin our air. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Kim Meacham.
Hello, my name is Kim Meacham. I'm a lifelong resident of Clairton, Pennsylvania. I belong to the organization of VCAN, Valley Clean Air Now. I'm here to ask that someone does something about this. U.S. Steel can afford fence line monitoring. We know this. As a lifelong resident of Clairton, I don't understand how nothing is going forward to help us with this crisis that we have in Clairton. How can a known lawbreaker as U.S. Steel continue to poison the residents of Clairton without any consequences, just a slap on the wrist? I've been there all my life, lost numerous members of my family to cancer. I've already made the ultimate sacrifice, my mom and dad. My dad worked at U.S. Steel. They provided us a home, clothes on our back, food on our tables, which was great, but his sacrifice was his life. He developed leukemia, and we know that's a known cause from the benzene exposure. My mother died of lung cancer, which we know is a cause from benzene exposure. My sister has respiratory issues that just developed over the last 5 years. She has to have a nebulizer because she has difficulty breathing. And when I go to her house and she walks up the steps, you'd swear she was about to pass out because she breathes so hard because she's not getting the oxygen that she's required. My grandfather died of bronchitis. Both sisters have thyroid disease. My brother has prostate cancer. A nephew had deadly asthma, but he's now 18, and his father moved him out of the area, and he hasn't had an episode since. So, as I conclude this, we know that U.S. Steel can afford fence line monitoring, but we need help from the county council because obviously nobody takes us serious. But we did see a big response when that derailment in Ohio, everyone came to their aid, but we Clairton residents suffer daily. Monitors are reading exceeding levels, let's say 8 out of 14 days of the week. So I'm here asking that someone steps up, steps out, help the residents of Clairton. People say move. Who can afford to move in this economy? It's very difficult. I'm a taxpaying citizen. I think I deserve to have better air quality. I don't know about you, but I really think that us residents there need help from the county council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Jay Walker.
He's here.
Good evening. My name is Jay Walker, and I'm a community organizer with Clean Air Council. Uh-oh. Okay. It's an environmental nonprofit with offices in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. The council has been working to protect everyone's right to breathe clean air for over 50 years. The council has approximately 35,000 advocates and members, including many in Allegheny County. The benzene monitor data collected by Environmental Integrity Project, CMU Create Lab, and Breathe Project in partnership with Valley Clean Air Now members shows that residents of the Mon Valley, including those living near U.S. Steel's Clairton Coke Works, suffer from a dangerous amount of benzene exposure. Their study showed that benzene was found at all of the homes that were sampled from and in concentrations that were disturbingly high. This study should ring alarm bells for county and federal leaders and should lead to decisive action to better monitor and cut harmful emissions. The council supports residents' call for fence line monitoring around U.S. Steel's Mon Valley Works, including the Clairton Coke Works. Please encourage the Allegheny County Health Department to require fence line monitoring for benzene at these facilities. It's clear from U.S. Steel's financial reporting that they can afford to install this commonplace practice for polluting industrial facilities. Fence line monitoring is required at the Shell Cracker Plant in Beaver County thanks to a settlement agreement that the council worked on with Environmental Integrity Project. This data would allow the Allegheny County Health Department to know what's being emitted and then to know what residents are being exposed to directly as a result of the facilities. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Next.
Ronell Guy.
Not here.
Isaac Keshka.
Not here.
Amy Zace.
Not here.
Cassandra Heckert.
Not here.
LaSalle Thompson.
Not here.
And lastly, Christina Formentino.
Not here. We had 2 people sign up. Does anyone object to letting those 2 speak? Go ahead. Tanisha?
Hi, my name is Tanisha Long. I'd originally thought I was going to come up here and talk about how no one blinks an eye when Rich Fitzgerald makes $68.27 an hour. No one talks about his pay. No one talks about how we can afford it. No one talks about the 47% raises he gave to his inner circle. That's what I originally wanted to talk about. But I heard, DeWitt Walton say that we shouldn't consider intersectionality and we shouldn't consider the effect that bills like this have on Black women when we're talking about raises, that it's disingenuous to consider the effect that this has on Black women, and I'm angry. I'm beyond angry. I'm an angry Black woman, some might say. As the only Black man sitting on county council, this is embarrassing. It's actually hurtful. It's hurtful to your community, it's hurtful to me, and it's hurtful for the Black women who carry this county on their back, coming to actions, going to protest, working in industries where they don't get appreciation. I sat in this county council hearing for 5 hours last week as a person with a house to advocate for people who did not have housing, because I understand that I use my privilege in ways that uplift my community, and somehow you forgot how to do that. You forgot about Black women. And to say that we're a prop when these are very real things that affect our lives is embarrassing. But I'm done with you for right now, because I'm just sick. Susan Pelagi, this is embarrassing. To say that people who are incarcerated don't deserve to be paid, I don't care whether or not that was the main point of discussion in this bill, is gross. It's called slave labor. That's what you're asking for. And for every person who sat on council and said that they don't want the person who works at the ice cream stand to make more money than the person in the union, how about we all make more money? How about everybody be able to afford to feed their families? Because these aren't just teenagers who work at these lifeguards, who work as lifeguards. These aren't just teenagers who work at soda stands. These aren't just teenagers. A lot of them are your age, because they live in a time where people who should be retired have to pick up extra jobs to feed their family. So if it makes you feel better, pretend they're 65, and maybe then they deserve a living wage. I'm embarrassed that some of you people get up here as elected officials and argue that people don't deserve to have the means to live and that we should sacrifice our Allegheny County residents' ability to feed their family for other budgetary concerns. That's not okay. Take it from the police. take it from Rich Fitzgerald's salary. I don't care where you take it from, but I care very much if a teenager makes enough money. I care very much if an incarcerated person could finally get paid in this county. You guys are dead wrong.
Thank you. Aubrey?
Good evening. My name is Aubrey Plesh. I'm the director of the Smithfield United Church of Christ shelter that is closing tonight. It will close its doors at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. There have been some numbers that have been thrown around. Thrown around. I want to be clear. Fitzgerald was inaccurate in the things that he said. In May, there were 608 unique individuals that visited Smithfield United Church of Christ. In June so far, 544. As of 5/26, air conditioning is fully operational. The claims that we don't have air conditioning are simply false. This is well known. Mr. Fitzgerald and county manager would know this if they've ever been to my facility. In terms of why I'm here, we have the least nicest accommodations, but hundreds of people come to our doors because they have nowhere else to go. By census of last night, which was about 181 or so, 156 through the doors for some type of service. We estimate a minimum of 60 by tomorrow morning will have nowhere to go. The county was very clear in the alignments that it had. There are 40 overflow spots at 2nd Avenue Commons, 20 at East End Cooperative Ministries, and 20 at Light of Life. The proposed alignments have been 188 if I'm looking at the data that DHS also has. Some of those are duplicates. So somebody, for example, may have been offered at Light of Life, declined to go there, and then went somewhere else. That's not 188 unique individuals. The county did prioritize 125 out of the 608 in May that came. There are people tomorrow that will have nowhere to go in our county. I don't have an answer. I hope you guys can find one. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have notification of contracts 12731-23.
Actually, we already proceeded with that.
Oh, I'm sorry. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion has been made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Have a nice night, everyone.